Okay.
This is an interview at the Public Library, Center Moriches, New York. The 11th of March, 2004, approximately 2:30 p.m. Interviewers are Wayne Clark and Mike Russert. Could you give me your full name, date of birth, and place of birth, please?
It's Robert Pelosi. I was born in Flushing, New York on December 17th, 1931.
Okay. What was your educational background prior to entering service?
Well, the normal grade school. I went to high school. I started school a little late because of domestic problems between my mother and father, so I lost about a year's time in school. So I ended up graduating high school. I had just turned 19. From high school, it was pretty quick. I traded a pencil in for a rifle. The Korean War was at its best.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you enlist or were you drafted?
I enlisted.
Why did you select the Marine Corps?
To be very honest with you, I thought if I was going to get killed, I wanted to be with the most well-trained, the best organization I could be with. I didn't like the Navy because there's only so far I could run to the rear without having the Atlantic or Pacific Ocean to deal with. The Air Force, I wanted to be in it. I didn't want to be fueling airplanes or doing some office work. If I had to go in, I wanted to do my part. I was influenced by Sans Iwo Jima with John Wayne. I went to see that in the movies. On the way out, there was a booth there. I had two friends of mine, and I said, look, we're going to get drafted. Who wants to go in the Army? That's how I felt. The Army they were guys too. They did their job and so forth. It wasn't the glory of the Marine Corps. It was just a challenge. And like I said, I felt that they were better trained than the other branches of service. And if I was going to die, I wanted it to be my fault. I didn't want to be in the engine room and a torpedo hits the place, or the gunners miss the plane. I aim at you, I miss, you don't, and it's my fault. So that's why I selected the Marine Corps.
Okay. Where were you inducted and where did you go for your basic?
New York City. I'm trying to remember the name of the street, Hudson Street or something like that. I went home. I lived with my aunt. I was raised by two aunts and a grandmother. My father and mother split up, so I bounced around within the family. I came home from joining up, and of course when you join, they said you'll be leaving in 3 weeks or whatever, report such and such a time. So I told her I joined the Marines, and she didn't believe me. So she said, oh, you're kidding, get out of here. What, you wouldn't do that. I said, I did. And she goes, oh, shush. So that day came along, and I said, well, Aunt Grace, I'm leaving. She goes, where are you going? I said, I told you, I joined the Marines. I got a report. Well, then she, like most aunts or mothers, she was like a mother to me. Well, what did you do this for, and so forth. I said, well, don't worry about me. So I said so long to her, and I had two other guys from the neighborhood, Jackie Casey and Joe Marone, who joined with me. A short story on them, Jackie Casey ended up in Japan doing post office kind of work, a mail room, and Joe worked with the air wing, servicing airplanes, and I ended up with the grunts. We went through boot camp, and I'll tell you, in 1951, it's not the Marine Corps of today. They could hit you, they could blacken your eye, they could do anything they wanted. But the challenge was so great that you took it. There were times when I would say to myself, does the outside world know what's going on down here? Because the challenge and the DIs were rough.
Now, did you go to Parris Island?
Parris Island, yeah. Any Marine who went to PI will tell you it was no picnic. When it was over and you would graduate, you loved your drill instructors. They were the greatest guys around. They taught you how to stay alive. When we graduated, the Commandant made a speech. And in the speech, he said that 60% of you fellas won't be coming home. It was that bad. We were on average 18 to 19 years old, maybe a 20-year-old. But we were fresh out of high school, most of us. The relationships that I got made in boot camp and in the Marine Corps were never ending. To this day, they're in my heart. From boot camp, I went to the engineers in Camp Lejeune. What they do in the Marine Corps is you take a number of tests, and they look at your education and how well you do on the test, and they try to put you in this position where you offer the most to the Marine Corps, skill-wise. I guess I did well on some tests because I ended up with the engineers for advanced training. I learned how to drive some heavy equipment, bulldozers and road graders and so forth. My spec was like 1365, which is an engineer group, or 1635, I no longer remember. From Lejeune, I left after about 2 months to go to Camp Pendleton for advanced infantry training. That makes you or breaks you, because now you're running around with a 60 to 90 pound pack, and you're doing it all. After a couple of months in advanced infantry training, you now go to the Sierra Nevadas for cold weather training, where the temperature is never above zero. I used to think that the trees were very muted and looked strange to me, because we were in this one area where I saw these little short trees of about 6 foot tall, looked like pine trees, Christmas trees, but they were strange looking, like they didn't have any trunk. And this area we were in was very flat, so we had a forced march there. I lost my helmet and then never realized it until a sergeant came up and he asked me, "Boy, where's your helmet?" Oh, like this, I didn't even know it was gone. And I said to him, "Sarge, how come this place is so flat?" He says, "This is called Corman's Lake. You're on a lake, and there's 14 feet of snow under you. And those trees are the very tops of the trees." At nighttime, you were supposed to dig a hole to sleep in. Am I talking too much?
No.
The hole you dug was just a hole in the snow, and then you tunneled it to sleep in there. And you were fire teams, 4 guys. And one guy stayed awake, and you guys slept, and you just alternated. The reason you were doing that is because they had aggressors. These guys were guys who had been to Korea, but they were the enemy, and they did everything. They didn't butt you with a rifle and knock you down, but they harassed the hell out of you. And they used to come down on skis, and they'd come to the area where you are and cave in your bunkers, cave in everything. If you had a machine gun, they'd take it and they'd throw it off a cliff or whatever. And then you were in trouble because you lost your weapon. They just tormented the hell out of you. You were up there for some 6 weeks, 7 weeks, something like that. And there was a sign when you walked into the Sierra Nevadas, and it said, "Under this sign pass men." And on the way out, it said, "Under this sign pass Marines." It's true. From that, we were stationed at Oceanside, and we were getting ready to go over. The night before we went over, they gave us a leave to go into town. It's your last night there. Everybody's going to die. And so you go to town and you really raise hell. There were 4 or 5 of us. And in Oceanside at the time, there was a tattoo parlor, a bar, and a barber shop. A tattoo parlor, a bar, and a barber shop. There was nothing more than that. Maybe they snuck in a delicatessen somewhere. I don't remember that part. Well, we did the bars and the bars and the bars, so not having been real troopers and drinking a lot, because we were pretty much fresh out of high school, we ended up looking in the window of a tattoo parlor, had all the pretty pictures. So we decided, we're all together, with 4 or 5 musketeers, let's all get a tattoo. We're all going to get the same tattoo, and we're going to get each other's name on it. All right? Well, we flipped coins who was going to go first. I was last, so I figured by the time they reach me, someone will chicken out, and then I won't have to do this. Well, the first guy to go, first of all, we picked out a skull and crossbones. And on the top it said USMC and your name, which my name was Bob, and underneath it I put your initials or your initials. We alternate. And my guy was a guy named Robert Carrick from Akron, Ohio. Well, the first guy to go was a kid named Bobby Marlowe. And he was sitting there, and the guy tattooing him has him rest his arm on his leg, and he works on you. Well, he was like this. And I said to him, "Bobby, does it hurt?" And he goes, "No." And I says, "Why are you shaking?" He goes, "I swear to God, my mother's going to kill me." Well, we all ended up tattooed. There's mine. We woke up in the morning, I'm laying on a second rack, the guys are all next to me, and I'm laying on site, I look over and I've got toilet paper wrapped around my arm with masking tape. It was a class operation. And I look at my friends like you got toilet paper, he's got toilet paper on his arm, and I says, oh, we did this? Well, we did. I'll step back if you want me to just keep talking.
No, that's what we want.
When I joined the Marines, I had a girlfriend, high school girlfriend, and I liked her a lot. I didn't know if I loved her enough to marry her, but as a 18, 19-year-old, I loved her. So I joined the Marines, and she's going to wait for me and all of this stuff. So little by little, the letters got few and few. In December, the Corps said that they were going to send home all the guys who were getting shipped over on a 10-day leave. However, 10% of the group had to stay on base for guard duty reasons. Well, I was always one of those guys that was in the 10%. I couldn't go. I had to stay in California. But she knew that I was coming home possibly for that 10-day leave, and she was all excited and so forth. Well, I called her to tell her that I wasn't coming. So now she was crying and all sorts of things, and she wanted to get engaged. And I said, I really don't think we should get engaged. You know, where I'm going, it isn't, you know, I'm not going on a picnic. Mm-hmm. And you're young and I'm young, and it'd be silly, you know, it'd be tough. Please, 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 please. All right. So I sent her $1,000, and I said, go see a friend of mine, Fred Krupp from high school. His father was a jeweler. Go get an engagement ring. So she did. Well, I left for Korea. In those days, we went over on a troop transport ship. It was called the General Weagle. It took 33 days across the Pacific. I saw Australia 3 times. We went by Australia, and then there was a typhoon or something there, so they had to circle around, and there goes Australia again, and then there was fog or something out there, and we had to circle around till it passed. So it was like a merry-go-round with us. There goes Australia, there goes Australia. By the time I got to Korea, I had about 6 or 8 letters from her because there was no mail call on the ship. On the ship, you got 2 meals a day. You had dehydrated potatoes, which was like eating broken glass, green eggs. It was awful. You ate standing up. The bunks were 5 high. There were about 18 inches between bunks. And on this bunk, you had your helmet, a flak jacket, some ammunition, your rifle, extra pair of boots, and your pack. There was very little room for you. But the best bunk was the top one, because you had stuff in the rafters you couldn't turn. The worst bunk was the bottom one, because guys would puke, and it would fall down and slop would go up onto them. Plus, you're locked in this room like this with maybe 80 to 100 guys, 5 bunks high. You're underwater, so you can hear water slushing by. When they have a raid or something, that door that you're in is locked. So if you're hit here, you can't get out. It's locked, and there's a Marine standing on the other side and won't let you out. This is just flooded, and you go to heaven. In her letters, she talked about she was lonesome, she missed me. Then they went, her girlfriends will go to a dance, and she'd like to go. Then another letter, she went, but she doesn't dance. And then she finally dances. And I wrote back and I said, this is crazy. Why don't we just call this thing off? And that was that. So the time I spent in Korea, I didn't have a girl. I was with like one of the guys who got Discharged. But I didn't want to let the guys know, because some guys took it real bad. I mean, it was tough. But it bothered me, but it didn't bother me. The only letter I got while I was in Korea, or letters I got, was from my Aunt Grace. My aunts and uncles, my father, no one wrote to me. I had a cousin, Jeannie, wrote to me a few times. I loved her. She was wonderful. But her name, my Aunt Grace, was Grace Martini. And she used to sign that on the back of the envelope, Grace Martini. When I'd get mail call, I'd say, hey, I got a letter from Gracie. And I thought, reading it, of course you say, Bobby, are you okay? Is everything all right? Can I send you anything? Uncle Roland's fine, and Ronnie's fine, the family's good, and all that, take care of yourself, God bless you, and all that stuff. And they would want me to read some part of it. And I'd say, the last night we spent together in the park, oh, it was great, you know. You know, you got a little flippy with your hands, but they understand, and little crap that I'd make up. They never knew that was my aunt. When I got discharged, I had two good friends, Frankie Phillips and Ralph Rizzio. One was from Ohio, one was from Newburgh, New York. They came down to Flushing to see me, visit me. My Aunt Grace was about 5'2" and probably 160, 170 pounds. Little plump lady, a lovely lady. So they come in the house, hi, nice to meet you. And I said, do you want to meet Gracie? And they said, yeah. And I put my arm around my hand. I said, this is Gracie. Oh, it was a lot of laughs. In Korea was a whole other thing. I was no longer in engineers, but I had that spec. I was now with an outfit called Shore Party, First Shore Party. Shore Party is made up of a lot of specialists, guys who do certain things. Initially, their job is to land on the beach first. They land on the beach and they have to put up what they call posters. They're red, they're white, they're black, red indicating ammunition, white indicating water, black could be something else in these different colors. Because the ships offshore are coming in with this equipment, they don't know where to bring it. So they look out for these big signs of color. So they see red, they start bringing the ammunition in there. Well, it's important that you don't put things next to the ammunition like medical supplies, because if that blows up, the medical supplies go with it, and that's more important than water. So they have to go in there and set up that much of a beachhead for the ships to come in. And then the regular guys come in. But Shore Party's there. My role in Shore Party was in mines and demolitions. My role was to dig up landmines. Not so much plant them, because most of the mines that were in the ground were mines that we planted when we were falling back before I got there. Most of them were Bouncing Betties. Bouncing Betty, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's a pretty horrible mine. It works a few ways. It has 2 wire leads to it. It stands about like a tall can of Coca-Cola or that beer, that quart beer. And alongside of it is a little pole that has prongs like so, that if you step on, it ignites the mine. Coming off this pole is a wire, trip wire, that's taut. You take it out and you peg it onto something, a tree, a stick, or whatever. On the other side is a slack line. If you take your foot through the tight one, it'll set it off. If you go to the loose one, and you pull it, it'll set it off. And if you stand on it, it'll go off. What comes out of that is a 3.5 mortar projectile. I think it's 3.2, I'm not sure. When it comes out, the only opportunity you have to survive is you hear it pop, to fall down as close to that as you can and huddle up. Because when it blows like a tent, but it goes out 30, 40 yards or whatever. Anything out there is history. I used to work with the 5th Marines. Most of my assignments were at night. The only daylight assignment I had was when they started talking about this peace talks in Parmesan, I think it was, and they were going to have what they call a path, a walk from the MLR through enemy territory to Parmesan. This road was going to be declared a no-fire zone. In other words, you could walk on this road and the enemy supposedly wouldn't shoot at you. You couldn't count on that. I cleared that, worked clearing of anti-tank mines. Anti-tank mines don't detonate until they have anywhere from 300 to 600 pounds on them. So there's ATs, there's APs, anti-personnel, and so forth. Personnel, any poundage will set that off. There are shoe mines made out of wood, and all they really did was either blow your foot off or mess it up badly. The Chinese made these, and they were easy to make. They had about a 1/4 pound block of TNT or Detrotol or something like that. patrolling at night was spooky and scary because it went like this. You would jump offline at about 11 o'clock at night. Your mission could be a number of things. Primarily, it was you were going out with recon, or recon had been out and set down where they're going to go the next day. You were going out there because you were the advance hit on a place. So that when the guys made their raid the next day, next morning, or 2 hours later, they know which way to go to get through the minefields and get to their destination, their object, as safe as possible. When you leave, when you get up on line to leave, the lieutenant is giving the sergeant, or whoever it might be, is running the patrol, where we're going, what we're going to do. When you leave, once you leave, there is no more talking. You only talk if it's absolutely necessary. Because talking is, and thinking of whispering, talking makes less noise than a whisper. So you talk, but very low. There's two people in the patrol that the patrol needs more than anyone else. It's the radio man and the mine man and the corpsman. And God bless the corpsman. You leave and you go first through the MLR. That's the main line of resistance where all the guys are. And you walk out, no one says anything. You don't know who you're with because it's nighttime. And when you go out on patrol as a mine man, you never know them. You have every little conversation, you can't see them, and you just go out, do your job, and you come back before daylight. When you leave the MLR, the first thing you come to is what they call the outpost. Now there's an outpost, then there's a listening post, and then that's the end of it. The outpost can have 4 guys, 2 guys, 6 guys, whatever it might be. And they usually have a radio. If some shit's going on, if some things are going on, they can radio back that we see some activity, we see some people, there's some noise over here. They might call in for a light, send up a flare to see what's out there. You pass that outpost, then you get to the listening post. The listening post, and neither one of these are combative. Their job is to listen, to find out what they can do. Things happen, they get back. The LPs are out there. Now they're just listening. That's all they do. They hear something, they radio it back to the OP to the MLR, etc., etc. I had one experience where you go as a team. There's like 2 of you, one mine man and the other mine man, and you alternate. You come to a minefield, you did it, my turn, you do it, my turn. There's nights when you're out there when the moon is up, and there's nights out there when there's no moon. It's nice when there's no moon. It's a little easier on your detail. If it's brightly lit, it's chances of not in your favor of getting hurt. When it's dark enough, you can go through the minefield standing up. A lot of times you use the mine detector. You got a headset, you got a disc, a meter on the rod of the mine detector, which is fluorescent to glows in the dark, and you're looking for its reading. When it goes, you wave it, it goes over a piece of metal, you get a reading. You got to find out what that is. Sometimes they're not totally operational. When it's a bright night, then you have a probe. And then you just go through there with your bayonet, and you probe, and you move, you roll your sleeves up, and you're trying to feel a wire go across you, and when you do, you trace the wire to see where it's going. When you get to some mines, the Chinese were very good at, is this my water?
Yes.
What the Chinese would do is this would be a bouncing Betty, we'll say, and it was like so. When you disarmed it, you had safety pins in here, and you disarm it. That won't go into it, but you disarm it. Now you've got to take the mine out, because, very carefully, underneath here they would take a hand grenade and pull a pin, and a spoon on it, which flies off like this, they would put on here. So if you lift it, this goes off in your face. They would throw empty shells in that hole as well. It would really be horrible. I worked very close with a guy called Hancock. He was a very good friend of mine, and we still send Christmas cards to one another. Hancock came out of a home for boys, had no parents. When we met, I asked him what his name was. He said, Hancock. I said, well, what's your first name? His name was Edgar Ellsworth Hancock. And I said, Hancock, whoever gave you that name didn't like you. And I'm not going to call you Edgar, and I'm not going to call you Ellsworth. I'm going to call you Mike. And his name became Mike. My name was Pelosi. Now, in the service, no one is Joe, Charlie, Harry. You're all last names. Well, they used to crucify my name. It's only 6 letters, but I was sounding Polish and everything else. So, because I used to carry a toothbrush on a string around my neck or in my pocket, when I could, I had no toothpaste. And in those days, there was called the Pepsodent Smile, so they called me Pepsi. That's how I got that nickname. We were doing a night patrol, and I was out there. And when a mine man goes out on the minefield, everybody has to get away from him. Because if he's going to go, he's going to go alone. So everybody else is down on the ground and waiting for him to go through where recon said this is a minefield in here. Or somehow they knew this was an area that they felt was mined. I was doing my thing. I didn't get a reading on the clock, but I had a bit of a moonlight. And I looked at my left foot, and rice paddies that you're walking through have a hump of dirt here, and this is all water and mush. So you walk on the top of this. Off to the slope was a bouncing Betty. And the wire, the loose wire, the taut wire was this way. The mine was here and my foot was right underneath it, and the wire was over me. Now I have a pack with the mine detector, I have the mine detector, I have a helmet, I'm gawky. I'm not really in a good position to start moving around and lay down and get this mine. So I make a signal to my team member, Mike Hancock, and he comes up. What's the matter, Bobby? What's happening, Pepsi? And I said, I got my foot right under that wire. I can't move. He disarmed it. He did it. That was big. That was big. My most disturbing experience...
Before you do that, do you have a photograph of both of you?
That's him. That's Hancock and Pelosi. You can see the flat jackets. And we were up on there. That's the trench. That's on the main line of resistance. We had either just finished or about to do my thing.
Do you know approximately what year?
That's probably 1952. Probably winter of 52, February, March, something like that.
Okay.
I was clearing a minefield with a kid named Gilmore. Came from the western slope of Colorado. I used to ask him, what is Colorado made of? He says, there's a western slope and an eastern slope. And I said, so Colorado's just a big mountain. You either live on one side of it or the other side of it. He said, more or less. But the eastern slope don't talk to the western slope. And I said, that's the middle of the United States, and is that the old Mason-Dixon line or whatever? Because I met funny guys in the service. There was a guy named Hollingsworth from Tennessee. His first name was Blue. Now, being a New Yorker, we're pretty much wise guys, you know. And I said, hey, Blue, did your mother and father name you after crayons? Do you have a sister named Red, Yellow, Green, Orange? But most of these jokes went over their head. They were just lovely guys. Another close friend of mine was Munson from Wood River, Nebraska. He was 19 years old. I don't think he ever been kissed. He was Gary Cooper. He was Jimmy Stewart. He was that kind of guy. Just slow and easy on the draw. There was a black guy we had. His name was Alonzo J. Sims. You could not call him Sims or Alonzo. If you wanted him, you had to call him Alonzo J. Sims. He was proud as hell of his name. The only black guy in our outfit that I remember. Later on, I saw others, but the Marine Corps was the Marine Corps. Gilmore and I were doing mission clearing off an area which was on a reverse slope where the enemy is. I think it was a hill called 229. And this side of the hill is the safe side, is called the reverse slope. The forward slope is where the bad guys can see you. And it was a nice, easy mission. He had an area, I had an area. He was clearing his, I was clearing mine, and then we're done. We go back about a mile behind the lines where we were. We were in some half-assed tents, and everybody was out doing things. Short party made roads, blew up roads. They made bridges, and they blew up bridges. They had South Koreans who laid Constantino wire, all kinds of projects. There were 3 mine teams, first, second, and third mine team, made up a bunch of guys. A lot of them went in the mine team because she got an extra $50 a month called hazardous duty. And I ended up being a sergeant. But I finished, and Gilmore was doing his area, and I said, I'm going back. Now, Gilmore probably, at the most, was 18. Might have been 17. Very quiet, typical Western kid. Never knew he was there. When I got back to the tent area, all the other guys were out on missions doing something. I went in my tent, and no one was in there. They were out doing their thing. So I put all my gear down, and I was getting ready to clean up or do whatever I did. And a lieutenant came into my tent and said, do you know Gilmore? And I said, yeah. He said, come on outside. So I come outside, and there's a weapons carrier outside. It's a half-assed truck with a canvas back to it. And he flips up the back, and he says, is that Gilmore? And it was a field jacket. And he flips it over, and it was Gilmore, but only from the waist up. He had stepped on a bouncing Betty. And I looked, and I said, yeah, that's Gilmore. And he says, okay, your name, took my name, and he drove away. It was if I excused myself from you to go get a drink of water. When I came back, only part of you was left, and you were gone. I never forgot that. Part that bothered me so much was I never even knew his first name, but I worked with him. He got killed in December, close to Christmas. His mother had already sent a package to him for Christmas. Packages used to have something like socks in them. Maybe they could slip in sausages or something like that. Good stuff. Gloves, things that were hard to come by. The box came, but Gilmore was gone. And then she sent a letter to share it among his friends. Well, that night was very disturbing. Opening that box and giving it to the guys. When I got out of the Marine Corps, for many years it bothered me the fact that I didn't know his first name. I belonged to the Marine Corps League, a group of old Marines out here, and I get a publication, and they had inquiries that you could make. So I wrote about Gilmore, and I got an answer. I got more than one answer. I think I got 2 or 3. One was on the money, and it was Gilmore. And I wrote to him, and he got back to me where he lived, and he told me the whole thing. And that gave me some peace. What bothered me is that I'm not sure he was 18 years old. But that's what that place was all about. There was a funny situation, a hurtful situation, years later when you look back at it. Stateside heard rumors that we weren't getting clean clothes or showers or hot meals, and it was pretty accurate. I tried to find out who it was, but even on the computer and all of that, I wasn't able to. A woman came over. She was either the Secretary of War, one of the politicians up there in a higher echelon, coming over to investigate this to see if it was true. It happened to be around Easter. And you see the way up we are there, over here?
Okay, yeah.
That's what we looked like. They said she was coming.
So you... Okay.
She was coming to interview the guys to see if it was a fact. Well, we were there, and, you know, war is very boring. When you get in firefights and stuff, they don't last very long unless it's a major push. And there are days where, and weeks where nothing happens, but you're just there, like a mannequin. And you go into these, you know, just sitting there and you're looking out there and you got zero on your mind. You just, nothing. And it was one of those days. All of a sudden, we hear some noise, and this entourage of people and her, in flak jackets and clothes that we wore, coming towards us. As I said, it was Easter. So we're in the hole, and she's on the ledge, and she's talking to us. Can I have your names, boys? We have our name, and so forth. And it was very bland. It wasn't, you know, you guys are doing a great job or a lousy job or whatever. It was just very vanilla. So she said, how you do it with showers, and you get hot meals, and you change your clothes and all of that. And we told her the truth. There were periods of time when, no, you didn't get a hot meal. You got the same stuff. We were eating food from World War II. All the C rations were World War II rations. All our uniforms were World War II. We went to Korea, which is a cold-ass, snowy place, in tropicals. We had everything green and camouflaged. The underwear was green. Everything we looked like we belonged in Palm Beach. It changed eventually, but we were eating the rations, 1941, 1942. Of course, they were only 10 years old, so it wasn't that bad. I can tell you a funny story about rations, but let me stay with this one. So she asks if she can take a picture. I don't know who she was taking it for, Stars and Stripes or some hunky-dunk paper somewhere. I never did find out. She wanted us to each hold an egg and take a picture of us holding the egg. So she gave us each an egg, and we held it like this. And he held his, and she would smile. You know, it's Easter, try to smile. So anyway, we tried to smile, and she took the picture. Then she took the 2 eggs. The point of the story is, the eggs were made of wood, painted white, and she took them back. In bad situations, the funny things happen when you reflect. In the rations, there was ham and limas, the most horrible thing you could ever think of eating. First of all, it was 10 years old, and when you opened the can, on the top was a big layer of lard, white lard. Underneath that was the limas and ham that had to be petrified. It was awful, the worst thing you could have. The franks and beans were fine, the spaghetti was okay. Sausage patties, forget about. And I can't remember the others, but the franks and beans and the spaghetti were the best, especially franks and beans. What can you do wrong with franks and beans? There was a cookie in your rations, and the cookie was a plain wafer, but it had mothers baked in the top, the word mothers. And the guys used to eat it and say, tastes just like my mother used to make, only she didn't shit in it. Pardon my language, but that's the way it was. When there was a fire, you couldn't have too many fires, but when you could make a fire, you made a fire and you threw your can in the fire. And you poked around with a stick and a bayonet or whatever. Keep your eye on it. Because I might have franks and beans, you might have ham and limas. And we're going to play some knock hockey here, you're going to end up with my franks and beans. It's not going to happen. Now there's a secret to throwing a can in a fire. And the secret is to puncture a hole in the bottom and the top of it. Otherwise it blows up. Well, when guys come to your outfit, new guys, they want to be one of the boys. So they're just going to come over. And after a while, you all look the same. I mean, you're all scrubby looking and whatever, especially in the winter. You couldn't tell your father or your brother if he was standing next to you. So you're sitting there working the can blows up, the cans get all mixed up, and then you come back and now you try to find your can. And you end up with ham and limas, and you're doing franks and beans. You can't say that's my can of beans, you know. It's one of those things. Oh, hey, the winter time was horrible. First of all, the Marines didn't get the right boots. The Army got the new boots, which were called Mickey Mouse shoes. They were rubber insulated, they were if you wore size 8, it looked like you had a size 12 shoe on, but they worked. It was months before we got them. We were still wearing leather, and that was bad news. The Army was selling it to us if you had $90. But in Korea, there was no restaurants, there was no payday, there was nothing. In Korea, it was like being sent to a huge garbage dump. Every building was blown apart, people were living in tin shacks and straw shacks. If there was a building, it was gutted, had no windows, had nothing. There was nothing there. The kids, a kid is a kid. 9 out of 10 kids, his name was Kim, and they were good. The mama sons, the women, they were good. They'd wash your clothes, bang, with no soap or anything, just a rock and a paddle, beat the hell out of it. They come clean as though they were put in a washing machine. Somewhere along the way, I got hurt. I got flash burns. I really don't know how it happened. I saw flashes, I saw stuff like that, but one morning I just couldn't open my eyes. So I went to a hospital ship, Repose, and I was on a hospital ship, Consolation, then I was in Japan, and I think it was Camp Fisher. And then I was sent back. When you got back from the hospital ship, no one told you where your outfit was. It was up to you to find it. So you just get off and you come at Incheon or wherever it might be. We were by Kimpo Airfield, and you just start asking, where First Short Party is, or the 5th Marines, or something like that. I hitchhiked rides with the Australians, they were crazy people. They were crazy. I don't know where the hell they got beer, but they had beer in straw containers, and wonderful guys, crazy. Them and the British Royal Marines, they were wonderful guys. So were the Turks. Well, I'm getting off what I'm talking about. Walking down the road till it was getting near dark, and now and then I'd ask some guys, where such and such is, and they'd tell me no, yes. I came upon a big tent, and in the tent was all stragglers, guys looking to find their outfit. So when you walk in the tent, it's pitch black, there's no lights, and you find an empty rack, and you stay there for the night, and you go out the next day. I think someone was in charge, but I never met that person. When you go in, the guys are all crapped out. The only thing you took off was your boots, and someone would yell at anybody here from Ohio, anybody here from California, or anybody here from New York. And I said, I'm from New York. And he said, what part of New York? And I said, Flushing. He says, I'm from Flushing. And the other guy says, shut the hell up, So he said, go outside. So we went outside the tent, and long story short, I went to a parochial school, St. Michael's in Flushing. In the grade behind me was this kid, Dominic Augustine, from Flushing, same school, knew a lot of people. My 2 girl cousins, was in his class. So we talked and chatted all night long. And we split up. Next day he went his way, I went my way. And a couple of weeks later his name was KIA, and he got killed in action. And I never saw him again. I don't know how many other guys you interviewed, but if any of these guys ever said in a combat situation or over there or any war that they weren't afraid, then they weren't there. And I was just another Marine doing what Marines do. I was no hero. The heroes came home in boxes. I don't know what else to say.
That's up to you, if you want to stop.
Yeah.
Okay. Could you just tell us about these 2 photographs and
Well, this is boot camp, and that's me. This is a guy called Eddie Murphy, and that's Johnny Caggiano. Caggiano came from Long Island City. He was a Golden Glover. Going through boot camp, you're all suffering from growing pains, and the boys from the South really wanted to be able to go home to North Carolina or Georgia and say that they beat the hell out of a Yankee. And so there were a lot of times when you mixed. John being a Golden Glover, he looked forward to it because he played with them. He'd pop them with left jabs and just pop and pop, pop until he said, John, knock it off, come on. The guy's face was pulp, but he wouldn't put him down. He just was like tuning up. Eddie Murphy was just another good guy, just a proud Irishman. When we graduated boot camp, we broke up. They went different ways. That was Paris Island, 1951, probably May.
Were you in Korea until the war ended?
I wasn't, no, it ended when I left. I left in May of 53, and I think June or July of 53 it ended.
Were you discharged at that point, or did you continue to stay in for a while?
I enlisted for 3 years when my 3 years was up. I came home on another troop ship. We landed at Treasure Island in California. We had to be deloused. We had bugs, lice. We had to take all our clothes off and throw them in a pile, and then they sprayed you under your arms, between your legs, and in your hair. And you stay there for a while, getting debriefed, indoctrinated, or whatever it is. And one of my disappointments, and I shouldn't be disappointed because it's just the way life was handed to me. When I came home, I was gone about 2 years. I didn't see a lot of combat. I had a shitty job, but I was there. And I'll tell you, a warming thing was, when you were coming back from patrol, after being out there all night, doing what you had to do, I told you about the ARS post and listening post of the guys in the MLR. As you passed them, they'd say, anything out there? In whispers. They'd say, no, it was quiet, or whatever happened. Everybody back? Everybody back? Yeah. You get to the next thing, everybody wanted to know if you guys were okay. Did you see anything? Is everybody okay? It was a warm feeling, I mean. And these were faces that I never saw. These were shadows. I never met any one of them, because when you went up to jump off, you didn't shake hands, you didn't do anything. He's the mind man, you stay by the radio man, and so forth. You know, when I talk about the service, the most important person to a Marine or soldier, whatever it is, and I take my hat off to the corpsman, because when the shit hits the fan and someone's hurt, they get up while everybody else is playing ball. And to know the corpsman's there for you is a very, very important thing. And I remember celebrating my 21st birthday on a patrol with Hancock, laying down in the mud somewhere, doing something, I don't know what the hell it was. And I said to him, what time is it? He said, it's midnight. And I said, I'm 21. And he goes, what do you want me to do, sing fucking happy birthday? Those kind of things. No, he didn't. But when I got back, when we came back, a very good friend of mine, Doc Albert, was a corpsman. And it was a tent area. We had FS tents. So he came and got me to come to his tent. We were going to have a party. Party consisted of 190 proof alcohol, which is used for medicinal purposes. But in your rations, you used to get a can of grapefruit once in a while. So if you took the grapefruit out and you got a rag or something and squeezed the juice out into your canteen, you might get about this much in the bottom of the canteen. And then he'd pour this alcohol in there, which the next day when you look at your canteen, it turned the bottom of the can black. So imagine what it was doing too, your insides. And then he had morphine. And I said, no, I ain't about to do that, Doc. I'll drink with you. So we had a little party. I got morphine once. It was an experience. I was on a stretcher somewhere, and they gave me a shot of morphine. I think it was one I couldn't see, which was only temporary. I could remember the voices as though they were far away, and they were saying, "Hold this guy down. You gotta hold this guy down." I had the feeling that I was Gulliver, and they were the Munchkins or the Gremlins or whatever they were, and I was just brushing them off me, and I was like this giant, tall guy. That's all I remember of that. When I left San Francisco, got on the plane, I did something dumb. I was sitting on a plane, and I had my uniform on, and I had these ribbons that I was given, and I'm a bit of a romantic or an egomaniac, because I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, I want to get off the plane last. And I said to the stewardess, "Can I get off the plane last?" Because I wanted to stand in the doorway and see my aunts and cousins and all of that standing there. So she says, "You ham." And I said, "Yeah, well, I ain't hurting anybody." She says, "All right, okay." So she said, "The plane, everybody's off, come on." So I step in the doorway, and there's nobody there. So she's looking at me, and she said, "They're probably inside. I'll walk with you," because she's leaving too. So we go into the area where you come to the ramp, and I look around, and there's nobody there. So we said so long, and I took a cab. I took a cab to St. Michael's Church, and I went to St. Michael's Church, and I thank my God for letting me survive that and come home in one piece. Then I walked down to my old neighborhood, and two of the old Italian men who saw me grow up as a kid in the street, Mr. Balafato and Mr. De Salvatore, saw me. Oh, you think they were my father, uncles? They came over, their arms around me, the hugs, the Italian kisses, and all of that stuff. I went to my front door, and everybody was asleep. And I woke them up, but I loved them. They didn't have to be there. They were with me, and that was Gracie. Took my uniform off. All I had to do, my Aunt Grace really wanted me to wear my uniform to church so she could stand next to me. I said, "I really didn't want to do that. Please, please, please." So I did. And she was as proud as a peacock, just standing next to me, and I was standing in Macy's window or something, the way it was. And I took my uniform off. 2 days later, and I went looking for a job. Jobs were hard to come by. Jobs of any kind of consequence, like New York Telephone Company, IBM, Con Edison, or the likes of those places. And if you didn't have an uncle or a brother or a cousin, chances of getting in were pretty slim. I had a cousin, Vincent, who was an executive with Chase Manhattan Bank, and he said to me, "Bob, why don't you take a job in a bank until something comes along?" Nothing was coming along, so I took the job. I was getting about $42 a week for unemployment benefits, and I took a job for $36 a week. So already I'm in the red. Make a long story short, I started as a clerk, and after 42 years, I was the corporate secretary, senior vice president, and I retired. Marine Corps has always been special to me.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your interview.
You're welcome.
Okay.
There was an island off Korea, began with an S, I no longer remember it, but it was, let me see how this went. There was a place, another island off Korea, similar to this one here. We were doing a practice run with the British Royal Marines. We raided this island, no one was on it. There were dead animals in the water, dead pigs and stuff like that, but we did an assault. We came off the ship in nets. We had an LCVPs, LSTs and so forth. Hit the beach, took the beach, no combat. Then it was time to chow down, and that was me eating a can of grapefruit.
I take it didn't have any alcohol in it?
No. No, there was things called beef jerky-like. You'd cut that, put it in your jaw, and maybe 2 or 3 hours later, it was chewable. was like eating a shingle.